don't need to start recording right now.
Oh, I can. Okay, I'll turn it on. It ought to do this. And admit all. So far, I see lots of ladies. That's awesome. Hi, everybody. Hello, hello. This is cool. It's a very female-driven Xplor.
Sorry, I just ruined
And then
it.
there's Jeff.
How'd you like that timing?
Oh, now we've got Paul's like run away. Oh, here's Dennis. Oh, Dennis. Okay, so it looks like some folks are just straggling through a little bit. Hey, Sharon.
Hello, everybody.
Oh, I see Slava's here. Folks are
Hey,
joining.
Joanne.
Hi.
I can't get my video to work, so I don't know what's
Oh.
Hi, Joanne.
Hello. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm awesome. So where are you these days? Where are you living?
Me
Yeah.
in New York.
Oh, okay. So you're
Where would she be otherwise? I feel like Mia's the biggest New Yorker, the biggest non-native New Yorker.
That's awesome. Now you've just totally disappeared, Liz.
I know. I don't understand what's going on with my video right now.
No. Oh, Skip. I think it's, by the way, I think it is Skip's birthday today and he's just joining now. So welcome everybody.
Do we get to sing?
Do you
Go ahead,
like-
please.
You're welcome to sing. I will abstain from that.
I can lip sync and just put on something up to YouTube. How does chipmunks sound? Or cats?
Oh man. So how is everybody? So whose first Xplor is this? Anybody's first? Sharon. Karen. That's awesome.
And it's a good topic.
It's an excellent topic. Skip, a little birdie told us it's your birthday today.
Yeah.
Happy birthday, Skip.
Birthday.
Thank
Happy
you.
birthday.
How are
I
you?
figured I'd join you since I've been, kind of screwing off all day, drinking beer.
Well, enjoy.
Happy birthday, Skip.
I'm
Thank you
putting
so
on my
much.
party hat just for you, Skip.
Oh.
Good, thank you.
Oh, very nice.
Very palatial. I like that.
Yes, it is. That's my living room.
So welcome everybody. Gum, who is Xplor Canada's president, is going to be taking us through this discussion. She's got a little bit of a presentation to walk us through, but for the most part, we really just want to have an open conversation around the topic of CCM and CXM and what's happening with direct mail and how does this impact everybody pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, what's coming next, and interject, raise your hand, use the chat. I'll be manning the chat and putting comments and stuff in there, so I'll be doing my best to keep track of all of that. And yeah, let's just, Christine, are you like outside? You kill me. Where's your cloud suit?
Hanging in the closet.
Yeah. Oh, they should get you a cloud bathing suit.
Oh, I don't think so.
That would be awesome.
I
Oh,
think
come
that's a
on.
great idea.
Right? In time for Xplor, we should get it.
I
Everybody, I
would-
think
I would-
that should be the giveaway, is everybody gets cloud bathing suits.
Nah, I do a cloud bathing wrap.
Sure.
Yeah, we can have for the Wednesday night party, we could have a cloud event at the side of the pool. So
Nice.
Exactly. That would be awesome.
Thank
All
you for
right.
inviting me, Joanne.
Oh, it would not be a party without you, Christine.
God knows I love a good party.
There you go. All right. So without further ado, Gum, let's take it away and see where this lands up.
Awesome. Thanks, Joanne. I don't really have a presentation. This is really intended to be an open discussion about these broad topics of CCM and CXM and what COVID has done to CCM and how this all works with respect to the other channels and other communications that entities are sending out to their customers. So I'll just start with the fact that I'd like to thank you all for coming, because this is really awesome on a Thursday.
Wednesday.
On a Wednesday afternoon. I've lost my days already. Wednesday afternoon in the summer in August. It's great that you're able to join at this point and just spend an hour talking amongst peers. So I just wanted to set the context, and this was part of the meeting invite originally, sort of setting the context that, you know, brands we all know need to be customer centric in this day and age by all means, and that every single touch point that they send out to their customer has to mean something beyond simply just, you know, a snapshot of historical transactions, or they need to have more than just that a single purpose. And so this speaks to the touch points that are, yes, documents and communications that are being sent out, but also all of those sort of inbound communications as well, any sort of interactions with call centers. All of these things are wrapped up within a brand's mandate in order to ensure that all of these interactions are customer centric. But then within the world of regulated industries, which is the world of CCM, there is the challenge is that much more, only because of all the regulations associated with these things. And in some cases, as we delve into these specific regulated industries of insurance, financial services, utilities, and healthcare, oftentimes those CCM type documents, the statements and invoices that might go out, those are in some cases the only direct touch point a company may have with their customer. And so with that context set, I just wanted to open up the forum to talk about those three questions that were posted for this session. That is, the first one being, how has COVID changed customer experience? And what is CCM's value in the world of customer experience management after, I guess we're still in it, but in this COVID world? Especially if you think specifically about those entities where truly their only touch point with that customer is that bill that goes out on a monthly basis, or that renewal notice that goes out on an annual basis. And so just to set the stage for the discussion, I just wanted to do a recap on things that I'm sure everybody understands, which is the fact that 2020 really did change the world. There's definitely increased customer CX expectations across industries. There's definitely fierce competition between companies out there, just because, well, everyone was presented with challenges that they'd never thought about in the world of business. And so from that, there were new operating models that were put in place. You think about all the ways that these companies, some of these retail companies have opened up their digital channels and made available to their customers instant information in terms of throughout their transactions with customers. Brands that have made available or given customers more power with respect to being able to conduct searches for products and conduct complete transactions online. All of that is sort of new operating models that have come out as a result of COVID. And the adoption of new engagement channels. And so entities and brands have looked all over the place and found new ways to engage their customers. And we all know that online is simply the foundation or the forum for the new norm. So, with these remote interactions that were mandated, digital has truly become the standard. And I'm not suggesting that this is completely out of line with what we were kind of already seeing leading up to COVID. All I'm suggesting is that with COVID, all of those digital transformation initiatives, all of those opening up of digital channels, all of that was accelerated at a pace that was just completely not expected. I think it was McKinsey that did a study last year on how in terms of digital adoption, or in terms of consumer digital adoption, it looked like that digital adoption had vaulted ahead 5 years over the course of, like 8 weeks during the early times of COVID. So all of these things, so COVID's just served to really accelerate that. And so with that came the need for, or at least I believe came the need for, CCM to sort of change itself and shift into CXM. So suddenly all those entities that were literally, only connecting with their customers on a monthly basis with a bill or an invoice, they're put in the spot where they need to make that bill or invoice more than what it was, and somehow have it feed into the whole customer experience. So I just wanted to stop here and open the floor up for input from folks that are on this call. What you've seen on your side with respect to how COVID has changed your business, changed your, how you service your clients, what you've seen with respect to end customers and these types of communications. So I'm just at this point going to open it up and let folks chime in. And if you do comment, I'd love for you to just introduce yourself and give us a little bit of a snapshot on what you do so that we all have context for your comments.
I have a comment if anybody wants to hear it.
Sure.
Yeah, this is Skip Bank. I'm the president of Xplor International. One of the things I've noticed and I've read about, and I think inadvertently is part of this whole CCM process, is what I call the grumpy factor. I think when you're dealing with customers today, that because they've been cooped up, because of all of the things that have happened during the whole COVID thing, I think it has impacted how they interact with companies, whether it's a lack of patience, whether it's more patience, whether it's whatever. I don't know if in fact that's changed the digital transformation, but I know in a couple instances, it has increased my personal frustration level in dealing with utilities and such. So has anybody had any experience with what I call the grumpy factor?
Absolutely. I'm finding that there's more and more companies relying on chatbots to try and circumvent that customer support, and they're not very good. So although a lot of companies had made the leap, yes, and kudos for trying, the reality is half the time the chatbots are saying, I'm sorry, I don't understand your question, or I can't help you. And I mean, I had a problem just today. So I think there's, that grumpiness that it's interesting because I think it's forcing more people to pick up the phone, which is the exact opposite of the intention of having the chatbots in the first place. So rather than preempt the customer issues by studying what are the most frequent complaints, what are the most frequent calls we get, and providing sort of those answers in advance, whether it's an FAQ or videos or whatever it is, and making it easier for those customers to self-serve, what they're doing is by taking this step forward, it's almost they're taking the 3 steps back and forcing us to go back to the old way of doing things, of picking up the phone. Has anybody else experienced that? And what do you guys think is happening to a lot of these institutions that have leapfrogged ahead, and sort of, are they going to go back to the way it was because it's familiar and comfortable, or are they going to just hold on and, until that ride is a little less
Try to
bumpy?
ride it out.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead. I hate getting on the phone personally, just to let you know. So.
Sharon?
I think customers are getting more and more grumpy because, like you said, Joanne, they're getting more and more of the wrong information. People think that automation is the magic bullet, but they don't do it right. And then customers are just getting.
Bravo, you're right.
A customer sends a request and asks for something specific, and then they get a generic response back. Or if you're a customer and you're known to the company, and then again, you get a generic response back, like they don't know who you are. So if you're going to do marketing automation and you're going to automate everything, then you have to do it right, or don't do it at all, because you're upsetting your customers even more.
And make sure all the departments talk to each other too. I got a call from Rogers last week trying to upsell me on services. No, it was this week. We moved on Saturday. We had all of our new Rogers, which is like cable, internet, cell phone, installed last week. We moved on Saturday, and I got a call this week from Rogers saying, "Oh, would you be interested?" And I'm like, "Honey, you're like a week late. We did it all a week ago. So get with the program."
Well, because you see, it's interesting, because I did a lot of work with Rogers at some point in my career. And because they bought up so many companies, none of the systems spoke to each other. So the departments don't know what the other department's doing. And all they're hearing from the powers that be is more leads, sell more. And all they're doing is annoying the customers to the point where they're leaving.
Yeah.
What's interesting is I've moved and I've just recently switched to home to a rental as well. But you always get retention getting on the line. I just want to cancel my service because I'm not there. I've even typed it in. I've even said, "What do you want me to help you with? I'm leaving." I'm saying I have to cancel my service. I'm moving. Right. So retention gets on the phone and then says, well, why are you leaving? Who are you going to? And, they spend all this time. Then you've got to wait for the next call to go through. I mean, that whole idea of AI or, putting in the necessary information up front is just completely worthless.
Yes,
it is. It's a complete waste of time.
Yep.
Well,
so how
not
can
everything that needs to be or could be automated should be automated, but some things to me are absolute must. For example, credit available on a credit card. Why should I speak to a human? And in fact, I don't want human to know what my last 10 transactions were anyway. But hey, I'll punch in one and for a computer to read it out to me. So in that case, the avatar or the robot telling me transactional based data is good. But on the flip side, let's talk about for us here in Canadian CRA, our Canada Revenue Agency. The statistic is if you actually get a human on the phone, 2 out of 3 times they're giving you wrong advice. So,
oh my gosh.
So welcome to Canada. So if you do get
someone,
it's no
different here.
Yeah. So what I typically do, I call up 5 people, I pick best 3 opinions that I want, and I record those, and I use that as my defense. So because every time you're gonna call up not a machine and a human, you will get an absolutely different answer, and they don't know what they're doing. So coming back to automated voicemail trees or chatbots, in some cases they're really good. For example, credit limit on your credit card, and in some cases when you're actually looking for advice, that's where people are needed much more.
Yeah, but think about how much wasted time you spend getting 3 or 4 opinions from people. Yeah. Between that and they send you a reply and say, was that information helpful? I say no. And then they send another reply, was that information? I mean, that whole cyclical thing is really ticks me off, I gotta tell you.
Yeah,
I'd rather get bad information.
The same thing with my car dealership. They send an automated message, was your service satisfactory? Answer is of course no, 4 times coming in for exact same issue that my trunk is not closing. So still not satisfied 6 months later, but so that was automated. But the second that person gets on the phone and following up on it, which actually did happen, all of a sudden things got resolved. So not everything that could be or should be automated should be automated.
So where do they draw that line? I guess you brought up 2 good examples. If you want an account balance, which is a no-brainer, that's just a computer lookup, that's one thing. But if you want something else that would be best suited, talking to a person, where do they draw that line, and how do they build that into the AI portion of things?
Well, in the past, in advertising online, there was something called net score, and this is the perception of public and how well you're doing. Whoever has the best net score is the leader in customer service and brand perception. So couldn't we apply exact same type of a net score to communications? And actually says at what point it's too much, it's big brother, or I don't want to speak to a human about some sort of an item, and what should be automated. For many years I've struggled. I've had business for over 25 years and I've struggled. Do I put a secretary and that answers the phone call on the second ring and redirects you to a person, or do I put an automated person, well, automated response where they press 2 to speak to someone and get rid of the 0 so they can never punch back out to a person. So it's even in something as simple as dialing into any office, there's always the struggle, human or a machine.
Yeah, I think that whole concept of like how do they assess whether or not they should have a human address a question or inquiry or have actual technology do that. I think that all falls back on that whole sort of customer journey mapping and you know, walking through what that flow might be for a customer and what all the options might be. And then at that point, sitting back and saying, okay, what's the best way to address this, if not through technology, if not through an actual human. So
maybe they should just ask the question. Do you want to talk to a human or do you want an automated response? And
So
see
I'd
where
like
they go
to,
with that.
I'd like to add some commentary
I have
here.
I have a hard time deciding, do I want to listen to the music while I'm on hold or not? And now you're asking me, do I want to speak to a human or not?
but that's
But
the
you
whole
have
thing.
to realize that they're directing you to what they want. They're not in it for the customer. I mean, that's the biggest problem. They're not interested in customer experience. They're interested in what they're interested in. So they're not going to say, do you want to speak to a human? Because they don't actually want you to speak to a human. They don't want to hire a human anymore. So a lot of the time, you know, whenever you phone in, the message is, well, if you want this, go to this website, or if you want this, go to that website. But they never say, you know, do you want to speak to a person?
Have you ever tried to reach a human at Microsoft or Google? Or you know, like it's impossible. Anyway, Christine, you were trying to speak and we all spoke.
And then, you know, I've actually had a couple of recent experiences in this past month from traveling and having to call the airlines.
Oh my gosh, I can't imagine.
And, you know, I've been flying most of my adult career. And, you know, I am rewards members with most of the airlines. And I needed to change a flight, which I could not do online. So it required me to engage with the person. There was a 4-hour wait to speak with a person.
Yeah.
And I think that the challenges in the industry with the workforce and people having trouble hiring people that actually want to work is a real challenge in the customer experience.
I agree.
For sure. And that's only, you know, that's specific to COVID. Like prior to COVID, I think there were always some challenges.
Oh, yeah, I mean,
clear.
Right.
And this unfortunate, you know, a negative impact of COVID is tied to, yes, the unavailability of workforce in order to provide that true sort of human touch customer service. But I do believe that in a lot of cases, these large organizations, they weren't ready for jumping ahead 5 years in terms of their digital engagement strategies with customers. Yep. And so now we're seeing it. It's very evident, right? Between the workforce shortage and their digital strategies not actually being mature enough and fleshed out enough to actually take the load. That's pretty much what we're seeing right now.
Robert pretty much said what we were just saying in the chat. It's interesting. And to your point, Gum, you know, many of these companies who have leapfrogged ahead these 5 years were 10 years behind to begin with. So they may have progressed 5 years, but that only just now puts them 5 years behind.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's where
That's a
we're
good
really
point.
starting to see a lot of this, fracturing happening, because they've gone as far as they can, but they're still already behind. And that's
Yeah.
where I think at some point they're going to be like, do we keep moving forward to catch up, or do we just, muddle through? It's
Yeah,
Robert.
I don't think muddling through is an option, quite frankly.
No.
What I do
No, it's
see
not.
is that, I think they're in their own way adopting an agile approach where they're just like, we know it's not perfect, but we got to get it out there. And once we get it out there, we'll get feedback. We'll know where to iterate and improve, because as it stands, otherwise they would have nothing. So,
Well, but the question then is, if you throw it over the fence and
Yeah.
people engage, whatever your strategy is, what's your prospects of losing people because what you did was either stupid or perceived to be stupid? I mean, there's a risk there.
there's absolutely a risk, but there's definitely a risk in not doing something, right? In this day and age, you need to be out there with respect to your digital offering and with respect to, that full sort of options for customers in terms of channels for them to reach out through.
I
I think it would
agree.
be far more frustrating if you were trying to connect with your airline and they didn't actually have a website for you to go to and log into and actually connect with somebody, or they didn't have a phone number for you to call into. So they have to have it out there. There's no option for them. And having it out there in sort of a not great fashion, okay, it's not the best. But again, if they can iterate and improve at a pace that is noticeable to customers, then that becomes, that may actually play in their favor, right?
So what
Yeah.
can we do as an association to help move this forward? How to help some of these, I'll just say legacy companies, these legacy industries like insurance and financial services, all the ones that we play with on a regular basis, who are, struggling. To Sharon's point, there's always, multiple mergers, acquisitions, so many, disparate data. It's the same struggles that we've always had, but they've blown up exponentially, partly because of COVID and partly also because of this sort of confluence between the direct mail houses and the transaction houses, and that whole blurring that has also precipitated over the last 18 months, more so than it probably would have had we not been in this situation.
For sure. So that it's that sort of coming together of, companies using those transactional touch points as also, opportunities to enhance it and to drive greater customer engagement. So that means including value add content from a marketing perspective, value add content from an informational perspective, from an advisory perspective, something that, again, makes those transactional documents more than they ever were in the past. And that more than they ever were in the past can be something as simple as, as Slava mentioned, being able to deliver that transactional information through different channels, through a sort of pull approach, like Slava said, call somebody or call into the company and I just want to know what my balance is and it tells me, and some automated, robot thing tells me what my balance is, and I don't have to care about privacy, and I get the information I need in, as quickly as I want it. So is it as simple as that? Or is it far more complex where you start talking about digital delivery of these statements, and now you're incorporating marketing content, and now that you're doing it through digital channels, do all of the strategies that you see tied to digital marketing suddenly come into play, right? Does, so, the next question in all of this in this session is like, what is the impact of direct marketing strategies converging with CCM? What does that mean? Because we all know that with CCM, it exists as an industry because delivering those regulated documents is extremely difficult. It's complex. It's complex because our clients work and operate in regulated industries. There's regulations. These documents are extremely complex because the content has to be very specific. And then you layer in the fact that consumers, they have expectations set based on how they deal with like a retailer. And so you think about how nimble some of these large retailers are with respect to customer interactions. And then you sort of think to how an insurance company might be able to deliver that same customer experience. And it's tough. And then there's complex technology within our clients' organizations that, that extend from mainframe environments to, something as simple as like siloing of business units that prevent the sharing of data or the using of data across an organization. All of that is extremely complex. And then because all these regulations are in play and all of these documents are very rigid, any sort of change management associated with these documents becomes a big, huge problem. It's a huge, long process. So you look at that, the complexities of CCM, and then you think, how do I then layer in marketing, that sort of nimble, super flexible, real-time marketing into that sort of complex ecosystem? And so, we're at this point, we're talking more than TransPromo. I think TransPromo has been in the CCM industry forever. And it's, people say, oh, it's putting a marketing graphic onto my statements. It's more than that, 100% more than that, because you're talking about bringing in more data sources to drive that marketing content. You're talking about, in some cases, real-time inclusion of that information into these digital versions of these documents. And of course, you're talking about tons of different delivery channels. So I'd like to pause here and open it up to the floor again to talk about what is the impact of bringing direct marketing into CCM. What does that mean for folks? What do you see on your side?
Who's doing it well?
You'd say what?
Does anybody here think that there's anybody doing a really good job of delivering this customer-centric transactional experience?
So you think to all of your service providers who issue to you a statement or a bill or a renewal or a policy or any of those sort of required communications, is anyone doing it well in terms of making that document or touch point engaging?
Well,
Not
I'd say
anyone
no one
I deal with.
Yeah, no one is doing it well. They're all trying, but because they're too big and the industry is moving too quick. But when you take it down to a smaller guy, let's call it one of my favorite pizza shops, they're doing it well. You can call in and speak to a person, just say, reorder what I did last time, or you can go onto their app, click the button and reorder or modify my order. You can go to their website, and guess what? With every purchase that I get, I also get a flyer and some kind of a personalization as well. So smaller guys are investing into that customer experience because pizza is so commoditized that if they're not doing it, their next door neighbor is going to do it. With the big guys, larger ships are that much harder to turn. So, and they don't have the right captain that says that that is the way that we should be turning.
But is that representative of all of our experiences? Like, can you guys all think about some of these service providers that we buy from in regulated industries that is obviously making the customer experience better with respect to how you engage with them?
I would think the banks are getting closer, at least here in Canada. I mean, I do have to give kudos to, let's say, TD. Their app is great. Their online experience, their mobile experience, they're constantly updating it. They're making it easier to self-serve, to understand the information you're getting. The statements, in my opinion, haven't really changed much. A statement is a statement. They've really not done much to boost that. But from a digital perspective, I think that, and I think RBC does it as well. And again, no comparison to what's being done in the States, because I think there's way more being done there. But I feel like at least the banks are making more of an effort to make it easy to self-serve and get the answers you want the way you want them.
But you have to identify what the motivation is for those businesses. And an aspect of that, particularly in the United States, is a reduction of cost. And as I posted earlier, customer service is expensive and it's a cost center, not a profit center. So while it may create a better experience for a customer, there's no way that it's going to drive much, if any, reasonable business. So in the United States, the push has been to reduce the cost of servicing people. In banks in particular, they've closed branches and they have fewer tellers. And they have really stepped up their game in terms of mobile apps, desktop applications, and your ability to manage a variety of different financial components. The other part where I have actually more direct experience, even though it's a little bit older, but even then, working with the Kaiser Health Group in the United States and also CVS pharmacies as they started to get into offering or being companion to healthcare services. They did an excellent job, but their goal again was a cost reduction, mandated or regulated publication of materials, actual printed materials, is a huge cost for them to have to do. But if they want to play in the game and be certified to do it, they have to follow those particular rules. But companion to that is also marketing. So they've been very clever about how they put together the regulated mailings along which are often protected health information, and the other parts of it are the marketing that they do to upsell you in the case of insurance to another plan that may be from a HMO to a PPO or something along those lines. In the commercialized environment of healthcare, it's another channel that they can create more focus with. So they're more motivated to concentrate on, one, reducing cost, and then two, using the channel to generate more business. The people on here who know me, I'm consumed with the idea of generating revenue, particularly for printers. And this is where I see this going in terms of being effective. If a printer can say, I have a program that's going to do these things for you, then it's good. But I want to double down on something that Slava mentioned, which was the smaller players. And I'm not talking about medium-sized business. I'm talking about the smaller players, which in the US and to some degree in Canada as well, is what makes up the majority of the economy. These players have adapted it. One example, I like the restaurant example of click and collect, where people are able to order what they want, not so much as home delivery, but on the way home from work, that they can pre-order it while they're sitting at a stoplight, hopefully not while they're driving, and be able to then go in and actually just go and do curbside service. That's a huge advantage for what they're doing. And as Slava said, if you hand out a small flyer with that, they can see what the specials are that week or that month or whatever the case is. And that hits a lot of retail environments, not just restaurants. So I think that there's a lot of expansion that could be done. But until you can make an argument, an ROI to a large company, the megalith companies, they're just not going to listen. Nobody's motivated to do it. I'll spare you the stories.
Do you think there's an opportunity for the commercial direct mailing houses, the commercial printers who offer direct mail solutions, to perhaps partner or work alongside some of the transaction mailing houses so that they can add that value of the marketing aspect? Because let's face it, in most of these companies, the data is not owned by marketing, it's owned by operations. Operations are the ones that establish, the workflows and the rules to produce the statements. It's not marketing. Marketing is sort of the afterthought. I think with Gum, where you're saying TransPromo, oh yeah, it's just an offer we add to the statement. That's all they ever think of it. They're not thinking marketing. They're thinking we've got to get this out on time, as near perfect as possible because of regulations and privacies. They're not thinking about marketing. So there's always that frustration because the marketers recognize that the statement is a really valuable tool. So how could we join forces? What would be a good way to do that? And I'm curious, Christine, with your background with USPS and now where you are today with tech mailing, do you see an opportunity for those two worlds to work together, or will we still always be sort of print's cousin? You know, where the transaction is its own segment of the print world. What do you think?
So thank you, Joanne. It's a great question, and it's a challenge that you know, I don't remember who was speaking about all of the small printers out there. You know, the transactional world, as you indicated, Joanne, you know, their workflow and their equipment was designed to produce a certain amount of you know, volume into number 10 envelopes. And we know marketing mail is anything but the value of marketing on those statements and invoices. And in the US, you know, we have many opportunities with the TransPromo. You know, it's been around for 20 years, but it really just never got a lot of traction. The US Postal Service offers a discount promotion on utilizing a TransPromo campaign. So if you put a TransPromo message on your invoices in color, the Postal Service will give you a 2% discount on your outbound postage for that. And the promotion goes for 3 months. So if you're a high volume transactional mailer, 2% postage is a significant amount of money. And add to that, for people in the US, we have an unprecedented postal rate change happening in 11 days. In the middle of a year, a second rate change that nobody planned and budgeted for. So the opportunity to save money on postage anywhere and utilize that white space for engaging with your customers. In addition to that TransPromo, there's emerging technology promotion, which you integrate in their QR code, near field communications, video and print, or augmented reality, the same promotion. You're going to get 2% off your outbound postage for that promotion period of 3 months.
It's interesting because, well, on two tracks. One, I had a call with Canada Post just this week, and then I had issues with Canada Post just this week. So that was interesting. But going back to what you're talking about, the unprecedented postage increase. So there's postage increase, and we all know there's huge paper increases as well. In fact, Robert, I think you made a comment on a What They Think article about how printers can go back to their customers and sort of apologize for the fact that they have to increase their rates, and that we shouldn't be apologizing. It is, you know, it's this commodity has increased in price. Lumber has everything has increased. Postage has increased. What is that going to? I apologize.
That's all
what
right.
is that going to do to the to the direct mail? I'm going to mute myself. Somebody can ask my question.
So I understand what your question was, and then from my opinion, Joanne, and it's for the people that believe in direct mail marketing, they're going to bite the bullet and continue to use the mail, but they've got to do it smarter and optimizing their postage, because that's usually the biggest piece of the cost, outside of obviously the recent paper increases, which is just adding to the overall cost per piece. But not everyone is optimizing the postage for large volume mailers the way they could. And there are some great solutions out there to do that.
Yeah, I think that in terms of the, you know, bringing greater value to those transactional documents that are going out, Joanne touched on it. It's all about data, quite frankly, right? She'd mentioned that data is often held on the operations side, and the marketer just doesn't get access to it and doesn't get to put their data into the mix in order to include that value add piece into these documents.
Right.
And so I think the largest thing here is data. And that's like literally, it's today's most valuable resource. Getting data, trying to bring that into an environment and to use it efficiently and effectively, and to, you know, actually establish that single source of truth for all the data, to actually have a, you know, in some cases, some people call it a data lake, other people call it data swamps, whatever that might be, but having data available so that it can be used within these transactional documents, and can be used to drive promotions and further customer engagement. And so the reality is that there is this sort of changing data landscape that's occurring, in which everything needs to be, how we traditionally think about data within, at least within the world of CCM, is just not true anymore as we move forward. There's definitely a need for, more connected real-time data. There's definitely a need for self-service to allow those business users, those marketers, access to the data themselves, for them to do the segmenting they need, the analytics they need in order to ultimately drive that sort of real-time marketing automation through these CCM touch points. And so in all of this, of course, there is that element of security associated with data. But I think one of the things that we forget, or sometimes just sort of lump in with security, is privacy. And data privacy is not the same as data security. And suddenly the thought of harvesting all of that data tied to a customer and then using it for marketing purposes within these CCM touch points. I don't know if I don't think anyone's really thought about what that means from a customer privacy perspective.
Well,
So, yes.
Yes, they have. I'm going to give one example. A company, O'Neill Data Solutions. They're located in Southern California. They primarily service they service both the healthcare and are starting to get more into the financial area because they have very high security within their system to be able to guarantee, the protection of the data that they manage, both for healthcare and for finance.
Yep.
So this is what actually I think the logical conclusion of what you've just explained is that printers need to actually add something other than a new printing press. They need to add services that do making hygienic data so that it's generic in some form and doesn't spill over any information that is, financially sensitive or healthcare sensitive. And having those skills in that case, and I can say particularly in the case of O'Neill Data Solutions, that's exactly what they do. Parts of Donnelly still have that. In fact, probably the only profitable part of Donnelly remaining is what they handle for the financial industry, the Edgar securities and things. So all of this is it's doable. It's just not within the consciousness of the business practices of the normal printer. And I don't know what normal means. Don't ask. But for most printers, if they're not putting ink on paper, they probably don't consider it a business that they could be in. And that is probably the biggest challenge. All of the things you're talking about, what need to be done and how it needs to be done, it isn't just in the hands of the marketers. It's in the hands of the people who actually manufacture and make this program happen. And that, in many of these cases, are the mailers and the printers that you're talking about. They've got to change their mindset as to what it is that they're responsible for doing. And it is a change.
Yeah, it is 100%. And I just wanted to touch on the point where you had said, O'Neill Data Solutions, I think you'd mentioned.
I did, yes.
Has a high degree of, security associated with their data. They know exactly what they're doing because they're working with super sensitive data tied to these, clients that are in industries that require that sensitivity and protection of data. But the data privacy piece, and I'll just cite an example. If you're talking about healthcare and you're talking about generating say invoices for a provider, is there a data privacy concern with respect to actually somebody, whether it be the printer or the healthcare provider, going through that invoice, looking at the actual services that were deployed, and then including a marketing promo tied to whatever, some sort of durable equipment associated with the condition that the patient has? From my perspective, if I were a patient and I received my invoice from my provider, and then there was a promo for you know, as a diabetic, there was a promo for, you know, an additional sort of, or a new age sort of blood sugar tester, I'd be like, hey, wait a second. I don't know if I want you to. Like, I know you have to
Exactly.
invoice me, and I know
That's
that I want to know what I'm being invoiced for, but I don't necessarily want you to use that information to then send me, you know, then include some sort of promo tied to my condition. Or worse still,
Exactly.
send
That's
a separate
exactly what,
marketing.
that's absolutely the issue with protecting the health information.
Yeah.
Is that even, I was responsible at that time for sending out appointment cards, which you would think would be pretty innocuous, show up at this place at this time.
Right.
However, it would also indicate that it was the Diabetes Institute, or it was, you know, the Cancer Institute, and that's
Mhm.
private information. So they
Mhm.
had to be sealed. There was, you know, fugitive glue and laser cut perfs that you had to tear it apart to be able to see what was inside of it, because that's private information.
Mhm.
So I put the link to O'Neill in there, and it's interesting. I didn't know there's a new website since I've looked at it, but right there in the very front of it, it says exactly what you guys have been talking about. Every customer is unique. It's time to communicate with them that way. O'Neill offers the most powerful CCM and CXM platform, enabling you to respond to each customer's unique wants and needs. Okay, that's advertising. They have flaws like every other company. Trust me, I was one of them at one point. But I think that at some stage, people have to understand that there are businesses that are building themselves around this. They're just not your traditional printer.
No.
And somebody's going to have to realize that someday which side of the fence they want to be on, the commodity side or the value add side. That's the question.
And one more thing, there's an interesting conversation happening just today. I popped in on LinkedIn where we're talking about the informed delivery. And I'm gonna like point to you again, Christine, because when you can't segment, if it all goes to the same mailbox, then everybody gets notified of what's in the mailbox, even if it may not be addressed to them. And because of the x-rays, you can potentially see through the envelope to what's inside the envelope when you get that picture of your envelope, if that makes any sense. So how does that, and you know, then that begs the question, do we need the what were they called, the shaded envelopes, so the privacy envelopes, and that's an additional cost, and who's responsible for incurring that cost to ensure that the privacy of the contents of the envelope, which is now being scanned and x-rayed so that you know you're getting your mail. So again, it's sort of like the 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. People want to be informed, but now, well, I don't want everybody in the house to know what's coming. I only want them to see their mail. Christine, have you heard any of that kind of conversation happening?
So I haven't, and just for clarification, with informed delivery, yes, they do scan the mail pieces, and you're seeing an image of those scanned mail pieces. They x-ray pieces, but not for actual display to, you know, the customer. Those are used for security purposes and screening. The black and white image that comes in the mail stream does occasionally, you can see through to the contents. I remember receiving an envelope and noticed there was a check inside, you know, and I held it up, you know, and squinted and you know, I could figure out how much it was. And got the mail before my husband.
There you go.
But with the informed delivery campaign, if a customer registers for a campaign, they're going to swap out the black and white image and use a color representative image of the mail piece that's coming. And that color representative image is also interactive and is required to be interactive, so that they can click on it and go to a digital engagement for that mail piece.
That's interesting. So the whole concept of interactive print, we didn't even touch on that. That's a whole other topic of conversation. I don't even know if we got through half of what we wanted to get through today. And I'm saying this because we're in our last 5 minutes. So I want to give Gum an opportunity to sort of maybe leave some final thoughts, and for us all to leave some final thoughts. But ultimately, you know, as an association, you know, we represent this industry. It's our job to figure it out somehow and try and educate both the transactional printers as well as the commercial direct mail houses on better ways to engage with customers. Gum,
No,
what do
that's
you have to say?
exactly. You took the words right out of my mouth, but you know, I love the whole, you know, Christine is such a font of knowledge with respect to the USPS. I'd love to delve deeper into that whole informed visibility thing, because that's crazy, but good.
Yeah. I think it was actually Jeff. He had to bounce because he has some issue on the press, but I'm almost positive it was Jeff's post that started this whole thing. And that's why he's even on the call, because I said, well, we're going to be talking about it.
Nice. And thank you, Gum. And I'm happy to support you guys in whatever you need.
Awesome. Awesome. And I'd love to connect with Robert as well to talk about the whole data side of things, because truly I believe that data is the key to all of this, right? Like without the data piece, then printers will just be commoditized output entities. It's the data piece, and knowing how to use data and knowing how to bring it together and knowing how to handle it properly is what's going to drive the sort of value add that I think this industry really needs to embrace.
But is it the end users that need more education, like the actual insurance companies and the healthcare providers, or is it really the printers that
It's
need?
both. It's both. Quite frankly, data is one of those things that it's so sort of, it ebbs and flows, right? You can't ever draw a line and say it's the end users and they have to be responsible for it. It's both sides of the house. And so, you know, as printers, as the output, you know, service providers to those end users, we need to know anything and everything about data so that we know how to engage with those end users and we know how to support them as they work through the, you know, what they want to do on the customer experience side. So there's huge topics here.
Yeah, no, and I think this is awesome. Is there anything that anybody would like to add before we sign off and say our fond farewells?
I'd say great slides, Gum. If I could get a set of those, I'd like to present those to Ryerson GCM. I'm going to go talk to the new chair of the school, and I think CCM is evolving to CXM. I think that's the way we got to go.
Yeah, absolutely.
That makes sense.
Absolutely.
I totally agree. Paul, you didn't have much to say. Mike, you were quiet. Any last words?
Yeah, the reason I was quiet is I missed the ABOD meeting as well, and I do apologize for that. I was talking to the great Tom Campbell for about 2 hours yesterday. And if you don't know Tom Campbell, he's probably the leading consciousness researcher on the planet. And we talked about AI, deep mind, alpha zero, neural networks, the evolution of consciousness in computers. So my mind is still blown even a day later.
Wow.
But I will say that we come here to learn how to make decisions. That's pretty apparent. Decisions start with good information. How do we get good information from good communication? So what we're doing here as an industry goes far beyond just business. It's about human communication. So we are on the right track. So what we are doing here is valuable. Let's stay the course. Let's figure it out. Let's keep doing it. I think humanity is evolving. So
Well said, Michael.
is that, I know that's a bit woo-woo, but that's where I was yesterday. So
No, it's amazing.
yeah, thanks,
Paul?
guys.
So I've been just sitting in the background listening. You know, as we get into data, I get really excited. When I worked at Kodak, I was part of a project to bring predictive analytics to print shops, right? And when I say predictive analytics to print shops, I mean for them to actually sell to their customers, right? And it was that whole idea of bringing value to print, like said, right? And it's kind of fascinating to me that that was 9 years ago, and it's still not happening, right? I mean, we had beta customers and we were having great success, but that was when Kodak declared bankruptcy, and it was still a nascent revenue stream. So that was it. It ended, but I mean, the opportunity is there. It really just takes someone to go out there and I think you're right. It's both sides of the fence that have to play in this game, right? If you're the printer that's savvy enough to get the right ear of people, and the big problem, as a couple of people said, is the whole silo issue, right? Where there are different data in organizations and they just don't touch one another, right? And nor do these people talk to one another half the time. And that's really the challenge. But the opportunity is there. Somebody just has to figure out how to wrangle it, I guess, right? So to speak.
And that's what we're all here for.
Right. The wrangling of it has to happen quickly because, what's happening on the data front is just moving so quickly.
Yeah.
Right.
You talk about how nothing's, that was 9 years ago, nothing's happened since, but things have happened, but the world of data has moved that much more quickly.
And honestly, I think what's going to happen is you take the, a legacy industry like print and the other legacy industries like insurance and healthcare and financial services. And sometimes it almost feels like the blind leading the blind, and you're going to get these other companies developing these really cool apps and software and tools that are just going to circumvent everything. And it's already starting to happen. So I think, there is a ton of opportunity, and really it's education and awareness and just doing it, enough of those, we just got to get it done.
I know. I think, okay, we're a minute over and I don't want to keep anybody any longer, but I just wanted to ask the folks on the phone, would you be interested in a session, another sort of virtual meetup session about data specifically? If we could bring in some data experts to actually talk about it.
I'm pressing 1 for yes.
Okay.
Yes, I press 1 as well.
Me too.
Then let's try and plan that one out, Joanne, for the next one.
Oh yeah, we will do that for the next one, which
Sure.
will be in September
Mhm.
as the lead up. And then there will be one in October, and then hopefully the stars will align and we will all meet up in Florida for Xplor in November.
Yes.
Oh, boy.
Let's hope. Let's
Fingers
hope. Fingers are triple crossed for this.
So folks, thank you very much for joining. I appreciate you joining it all and staying a little bit late.
And I'll post the recording onto the LinkedIn Xplor group page. If you are not members, please become and follow the Xplor group page. And thank you. And we'll continue this next month.
Thank you all. Have a good
Take care.
Thank
day.
you, guys.
Have a
so
great
much.
day.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.